A quick introduction of me. I started as a teacher. In fact, I ran into some former educators yesterday when I was out having brunch. They're all retired. And we kind of joked, Jerry said, I should have joined them because I'm also sort of retired from that part of my life, but I'm just teaching in a different way now. I like to think I'm teaching the community through the work I do with Young Living, through the work I do with Soul Care Sanctuary and Grief Retreat, and the work that I'm going to do this summer as a swim lesson instructor as well. We've been using Young Living with Living Well Now for 17 years now. And we really got serious about our businesses around 2012. I've been a spiritual director and coach since 2016. I made that decision upon retiring because I've always felt called to ministry, and I just thought it was really important to kind of put action into my goals and my dreams. So I continue to follow eagerly God's path as it lays out, and am excited about what the next few years will bring as well. In 2020, I got remarried after being divorced in 2012. In 2020, I was remarried to Jerry, and we now have a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-and-a-half-year-old. So that's pretty cool too. I, however, just lost my mom to cancer in November of 2022. And so that has really kind of pushed me further along this track of um, vulnerability, grief, being honest about my feelings, and calling other women into that same sort of process as well. A quick disclaimer, and that is, and I've been giving this as a spiritual director as just it feels important to me to say, because I get to hold stories for so many people. I do stand by the law of ARS 133620, which is a reporting law. It's really important to me that you are safe, that people that are in your presence are safe, especially if there's a minor or a vulnerable adult involved. It just feels really important to me to have that boundary in the listening that I get to do. Just a quick thing, we are going to use Young Living essential oils toward the end of this call tonight. We really believe that, and I'm a huge proponent for, I'm a huge proponent for using essential oils to maintain spiritual and emotional wellness as well as physical wellness. And out of our Living Well Now team, we've brought a lot of people together who share some of those same values as well. All right. Okay, I'm going to leave you here with this screen for just a second. I've got to go grab something off the printer. I'll be right back. Life is exciting. Okay. So one of my favorite resources in the last couple of years since it was published is a book by Brené Brown called Atlas of the Heart. Some of you may be familiar with it. It looks like this. It's red. It's hardback, but it's literally like an encyclopedia of feelings. And what she is attempting to do is give voice to the feelings that we have in our lives so that we can more clearly identify where we are on the journey. One of the things this book is also a mini series or a documentary on HBO Max. And you may be able to access it through Amazon Prime as well. But she takes each of like 87 feelings and puts them, describes them in this book, and she categorizes them based on what we actually end up doing as a result of the feeling, because sometimes we get into action and don't necessarily evaluate what we're feeling or how we're feeling. So if you look at these photos of these people, I selected, these are faces, emotions to me, the places we go when things are uncertain or too much. And unfortunately, or I mean, just how our society is right now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, our technology is a big distraction from our uncertainty or overwhelm. So you can see the woman kind of frustrated at the computer, the guy sort of mindlessly on the remote control, and then the woman with her cell phone, maybe just scrolling or reading some disappointing news. But this section that we're going to talk about today is right at the very beginning of the book. The places we go when things are uncertain or too much include the feelings, and I'll just pull this up here so as a model, include the feelings of stress, overwhelm, anxiety, worry, avoidance, excitement, dread, fear, and vulnerability. And those of you who are not quite familiar with Brené yet, or Brené's work, a lot of what she's done is in the area of vulnerability. It's kind of her hot spot, her sweet spot. It was one of the very first videos that she did that went viral, because so many people resonated with the idea of being honest about who we are and what we believe and what we're struggling with. And some of us come to this conversation tonight already with physical maladies, diagnoses, perhaps mental health concerns. And some of these things are, obviously, anxiety and stress and worry are all kind of at the forefront for many women in particular. It's, I think, a little bit of how we're wired. And so in the text, we're going to talk a little bit about what overwhelm is and how it works. Thank you. Okay. So I made notes so it was easy to follow along, and that was my wonderful 18-year-old bringing me my notes. So she talks about whether feeling stressed and feeling overwhelmed can be related to our perception of how we're coping with the current situation. So take a minute to evaluate how you're coping with your life this week, beginning of the new month, maybe the third month of the year, maybe the weather, maybe a job situation, maybe a personal injury, something that how you're coping with the current situation and your ability to handle the accompanying emotions, because obviously emotions come with that, those limitations, right? Am I coping? Can I handle this? Am I inching toward the quicksand? She references a meditation expert named John Kabat-Zinn. Some of you may be familiar with him and his work. He describes overwhelm as the all too common feeling that our lives are somehow unfolding faster than the human nervous system and psyche are able to manage well. And this really resonated. It's all unfolding faster than my own nervous system and my psyche can manage it. So when Kabat-Zinn goes on to talk about how play, mindfulness, or even the state of nothingness is the counterbalance of feeling overwhelmed, that also makes me a little bit nervous because I don't want to just do nothing in my overwhelm. But it does help me understand why I need to take a beat or to take a step back from a situation. There was a researcher named Carol Gom, and she used the term overwhelm to describe an experience. And I love this. This was more helpful to me, where our emotions are intense, our focus on the emotions is moderate, and our clarity about exactly what we're feeling is low enough that we can get confused when trying to identify or describe the emotion. So in other words, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm feeling my emotions at a 10. I'm frustrated, I'm angry, my stress levels are high, my overwhelm is high, but I'm paying attention to them at a 5. So not quite resonating or regulating with them. And I understand my emotions at about a 2. And that's not where we make successful decisions. The big learning here is that feeling both stressed and overwhelmed is about our own narrative, the story we tell ourselves of our own emotional and mental depletion. And that varies from person to person. We may have a large storehold of fortitude, right? And be able to kind of withstand heavy winds. Linda, I'll cite Adam for a second. One of my favorite examples Adam Brooks gives in a lot of his talks is about trees in the biosphere and how they blew over because there was no wind that helped them, no adversity that helped them develop stronger roots into the system at the biosphere. They were very shallow roots. And so the trees blew over simply, and that it disrupted the ecosystem in the biosphere. And that was part of the reason it didn't succeed. And I just love that because I think about how often I feel blown over, right? Or like whipped by the wind of the world without having my roots sunk into the dirt far enough. And so there's just too much going on at some points to be able to manage those things effectively. This was a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer. She's it's a little strong, but I think it makes sense in this context. You're afraid of surrender because this was speaking to me in particular. You're afraid of surrender because you don't want to lose control, but you never had control. All you had was anxiety. And I'm not talking about clinical anxiety. Like I know there's an entire level of anxiety that's unmanageable, but thinking about owning the anxiousness that we feel, owning the unsettled feeling, owning the uncertainty, and being able to surrender is what our faith life is all about, right? We trust in a higher power, in a God who is not going to leave us, will never leave us or forsake us, scripture says. So how do we release our human control, acknowledge our anxiety, name our feelings in these moments so that we can more clearly and honestly deal with the situation that's right in front of us? In The Dance of Fear, Dr. Harriet Lerner says, it's not fear that stops you from doing the brave and true thing in your daily life. Rather, the problem is avoidance. You want to feel comfortable, which is completely natural and normal. And of course, we want to feel comfortable, so we're going to avoid doing the thing that will evoke fear and other difficult emotions. Avoidance makes us feel less vulnerable in the short run, but it will never make you feel less afraid. So I think that's a huge learning in this idea of what does decluttering look like then when we're already coming at it from a place where the piles are out of our control. The situation is out of our control. Christina, you brought up a really good thing in our group this week about maybe our household isn't set up quite to facilitate a decluttering. And so we have to take into account what can we do? Not just what will keep us comfortable and keep us out of our emotions, but what can we do to manage our emotions to even get into the conversation about decluttering or digital distractions. This is an old graph. I tried to find something a little bit newer. This graph is from 2020. I think it's 2020. And you can see here Q4 of 2019, Q4 of 2018, and Q4 of 2017. You can see an increase in the number of time and the average time we spend per adult per day on technology. And you can see the blue is live TV. The purple represents the radio. So I thought that was really fascinating. The orange is an app or web on a smartphone. And then the red out there at the end is the app or web on a tablet. But consumers, they're saying, now spend 50% of their day connected to media, reaching 12 hours and 20 minutes. I don't know how many of you have an Apple phone or if you have it set up to track your screen time per week, but that's something that you can go into your settings and identify for yourself. Admittedly, I track mine and I'm usually around 7 to 8 hours per day in some form of technology. And so I'm always fascinated by that. Like, it'll tell me at the end of the week if I was higher or lower, and that's an average of the entire week. And that seems super high to me, right? Like I want to believe that I'm not on my phone that much, but when I think about calling and text messaging, as well as Facebook and Instagram, as well as other apps that I'm accessing, or playing Wordle on Safari through my internet browser. It makes sense. It also says almost half of the time, 5 hours and 43 minutes, is spent watching video across devices, including TV connected devices, computers, smartphone, and tablets. Overloading attention, this is the danger in this. Overloading attention actually shrinks mental control. Life immersed in digital distractions then creates a near constant cognitive overload, and that's based on research by Daniel Goleman. So why does this keep happening? What does it mean? The dog is kind of decided if he's coming in or out. So I'm just going to shut the door so he doesn't come in anymore. So what does it mean? Part of our brain's evolution as hunters and gatherers in our former lives is to be on the lookout for new information. So we are seeking out, like our ancestors did, whether this berry on this tree is poisonous, and we're going to try it and see what happens. And if we're successful and the berry tastes good, dopamine is released in our brains and says, this is a good thing. We should have more of these berries. So we are battling that information seeking instinct that we have, because now we have such an instant reward. When we pick up our phone, we see a text message, or we hear a ding or a buzz, or something happens that gets our attention when we're already focused on something else. Dopamine is released. When we go online and we see likes and loves and messages and comments, the dopamine increases in our bodies. And so then we feel more happy. So then if we don't keep feeding that monster, we start to have a decrease in dopamine. And so we're on this very interesting cycle of cognitive control, or developing cognitive control, versus our instinct of, I need to seek more information. I need to find more about what's going on in the world. Now, stay with me because we're getting to the decluttering part. So if you think about the ways our brain is facilitating all of this information, our feelings of overwhelm, our feelings of stress and anxiety, our feelings of worry, this is all kind of converging together then to make sense why decluttering can be one of the hardest tasks to overcome, because it is so contrary to what's comfortable, right? It doesn't provide a dopamine hit in the same way. In fact, if you look at, I don't know how many of you watch Marie Kondo's program on TV or read her book about the magic of tidying up, but she talks about commit yourself to tidying up. Well, if I can't even commit myself to put down my phone, 21 hours a day or whatever, what would that be? No, 8 hours a day. So 16 hours a day. If I am not conscious about how much I'm kind of responding or replying or kind of in the moment, I'm going to have a difficult time even prioritizing declutter. Imagining my ideal lifestyle, finish discarding first, tidy by category, not by location, follow the right order. And then, of course, her infamous line, does this object still spark joy for me? Does it still bring me a sense of joy? And the other issue at play here then is cortisol. Cortisol of being surrounded by things that are unfinished, or increased stress levels based on life happenings, whether it's physical space, or it's relationships, or that kind of thing. All of these are symptoms of high cortisol. So anxiety, depression, irritability, weight gain, unexplained weight loss, sleep problems, fatigue, digestive issues, memory problems, and brain fog, high blood pressure, especially when women in the Framingham Heart Study found that higher cortisol levels in women were linked to poor performance in memory, organization, visual perception, and attention. So if your cortisol levels are already out of whack, any of this decluttering conversation is going to be really, really hard to have, right? So and to contrast that, we want to start looking at benefits and things that we can do to create a happier brain, a happier soul, heart, right? Mind, a spirit that is joy-filled outside of these distractions that are in our lives. So I won't go into any more detail about that. It's just something to note if you aren't aware of your cortisol levels or your stress levels, how this all plays together. Next. My goal in what I've been doing with Soul Care Sanctuary is to help people take a step back from the conversation of what needs to be done next, right? In each of these conversations or each of these areas. And truly, how do we start from a place that feels nourishing to our divine within, to our God self, to our inner child, to that person, that little girl who's inside of us who may not be able to express what she's feeling in a really stressed and overrun circumstance at the moment. And so I pulled out spirituality as one of the one of the tasks to be done, and said, what if it was the hub? What if soul care, what if spirituality was literally the hub of the wheel, and all of these other things, our relationships, our health, our minds, our careers, our fun, our worldview, etc., around, all came from a really clear center of our beliefs, our religious practices, our spirituality, our belief in God, a faith life that isn't just based on doing, but is just based on being, really seeing ourselves as a worthy daughter of the Most High, child of God. And so one of the things I did is I published a soul care kit, and I sent that out last summer. I'm making some edits to it right now with the help of my assistant, because I need a page on grief care. I feel like that's really important. And so I'm adding in some more information about grief and the tools and the resources that I've accessed that have been most helpful to me. But one of the things, two important things inside the soul care kit that I want to just direct your attention to. And I do have it pulled up. Let me see if I can share it without too much trouble. Yeah. So the first thing is, if you haven't done a soul care journal, this is a great way to sort of update your subconscious goals and dreams. Instead of creating the vision board, you can use a vision journal, which lays out the priority of soul care in the midst of your other goals and dreams, based on the idea that Thomas Merton said, to allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone and everything, is to succumb to violence itself. So thinking about who you are and where you want to be in 12 months from now, you're writing a short biography about yourself and your soul care. And then I gave you some prompts about growing as a person, what you'll look like, feel like, act or behave, what fears have you overcome, what would you want to start, what are you improving in your mindset, how are you tracking that growth, to just help you start to think about who you are becoming. And I think when you start from this place, then you can ask yourself, does it make sense then to from this place of centeredness and wholeness, does it make sense to do this project of, one of the projects that's hanging over my head right now is my mom's books and resources are in a small garage at my parents' house. And, my dad would like us to move those sooner than later. And so how do I mentally kind of prepare my center for the work that's ahead for that particular task, knowing that it's going to come with its own set of grief, its own set of stories, its own set of time, because I want to just pour into all of that and not rush it. So that would be one example. And then there's some space in here as well and some examples. But then this other one, I'll come back to this later. This other example of Lectio Divina will be one of those, if you are looking for some solutions to how do I get in the mind space then to declutter, or if I am not going to be on my phone, what are the other things I can be doing to help me center? I've got a couple of resources in there, including Lectio Divina. So let me just quickly go back through this. The other thing cognitive neuroscientists Adam Gazzaley and psychologist Larry Rosen recommend is to set up your day into project periods. So even as you get started with your day, like my morning is reserved for self-care. So that's where I do my workouts. It's where I go to the store. It's where I take my appointments. I meet with friends. And it's a nourishing morning for myself. And then I usually work 12 to 6 so that I have time to sort of chunk my afternoon for appointments and work related type things. And that also helps me know when I'm not available, right? So making myself unavailable from time to time does help me boost my focus. There's a former Apple and Microsoft executive named Linda Stone who said, who she's called continuous partial attention, is the phenomenon of always being alert and reachable. She said, when we check our screens frequently, we won't miss out on anything, but this also means we may never fully pay attention to anything, any one thing, as our brains are then just scanning for the information and not really like honed in on that. So there are even times I'll leave my phone in the car when I go in for an appointment. I definitely leave it in the car when I go to yoga or to the gym, because I can find myself super distracted, even sitting in the gym, you know, supposedly there to work out, totally distracted in something on social media in particular. This idea of always being on and being accessible is also fueling a lot of people's anxiety. And so just to keep in mind, if that's something that you struggle with, how disciplined are you when it comes to your tech use? I've also had periods and seasons of my life where that screen time was limited. So I said I could only use, I would only use Facebook between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Or I would only use or access Instagram from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So then I'm not just mindlessly pulling it up to just distract myself. I had limits, and I kind of like that they've put those limits on there. I used them for my kids when they were little. Now my daughter uses them better than I do because she knows what a time suck it is for her as well. All right, so again, let's go back to clutter. Let's go back to jam-packed shelves, trying to make space for everything, anticipating that we are going to need something later in our lives, and how to manage all of that. Honestly, an average room has over 2,000 visible objects. Particularly an office or a computer area that we tend to spend the most time in. And that creates some overstimulation and anxiousness as well. But we're not meant to live in that cycle of stress and overwhelm. So where is a safe and sacred place that you can create, even if it's just a corner? Mine's a chair that I have in this office that is, and I have a chair out in my living room as well. Those are my sacred places where I know when I sit there, I'm really not working on anything else. I'm reading, I'm creating, I'm writing. I'm there for a purpose. And it's a non-distracted space that I've made. So some basic steps to deeper spirituality in the midst of decluttering and digital detoxing. All right. Are you so glad you didn't show up tonight for a one-on-one on how to spray and wipe down all of your technology? Just a different kind of wipe down of your technology, right? You can access all of that information. You can go through a checklist if that works for you. But I wanted to take care of nurture your soul a little bit through this work. So obviously, 12 minutes of exercise, literally only 12 minutes of exercise, facilitates brain function and improves your attention. So 12 minutes, just, I don't know, bouncing on a trampoline, or just at like on your feet. It could be a 12-minute brisk walk. Train your eyes using the 20-20 rule, 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, take a 20-second break and focus on object 20 feet away. Earlier today, I actually said to Jerry, he works at his computer here at the house, and he was online at 9 a.m. And I got home about 1, and I said, hey, why don't you stand up for a second? Because I knew he hadn't been up for a little while. And he said, okay, I stood up. I'm like, nope, walk to the kitchen. Let's change your location. Let's change your atmosphere. So sometimes you just have to take that 20-20-20, maybe set a timer on your phone. Technology isn't bad. It just needs to be managed better. Expose yourself to nature. Allow yourself to do nothing. Perhaps daydream, doodle, or even a power nap can help your brain strengthen, and laughter as well. My brother's a big fan of short-term power naps. 10-minute naps have been shown to improve cognitive function. Longer naps work, as seen in a study of pilots who improved their reaction time after taking a 30-minute nap. But even just talking to other human beings face to face or on the phone reduces stress and has been shown to improve work performance. So let that be inspiring to you as you think about why is this a place that we're going to start with decluttering? Well, we're not going to jump into a project if we don't have a good sense about why we're doing it and what it's for and how it's going to benefit us. So what about the idea of multitasking? I'm going to address this really quickly. The modern world is full of situations that involve multitasking. And I had this conversation with my assistant this week. Sometimes for individuals who are diagnosed ADHD, multitasking is actually a benefit to them, and it can help in structured ways them focus better on multiple things happening at once. But for the majority of people, we actually need to focus on a task for a period of time and then switch to another task if we want our brain to work at its optimal level. In 2009, there was a study conducted that the brain is actually unable to successfully multitask. When we try to do too many things at once, our attention actually switches quickly between the tasks, causing us to lose concentration, which means that we end up taking more time to regain our focus when we switch back to the original task. That research also discovered that people who multitask on a regular basis are easily distracted, which means that they end up using more of their brain when it comes to actual concentration. So I don't know, chicken or egg, which came first, the multitask or the distraction? I'm not entirely sure which one we can say came first. So what do we do to strengthen our cognitive control? The number one research-based way is to practice meditation. And we don't often talk about meditation in Christian circles. Sometimes people have a bad understanding about what meditation is, but truly, meditation and prayer go hand in hand. And in a minute, we're going to talk about another practice called contemplation. And there are two types of meditation, basic meditation. One is the type that you start by focusing on your breath. And the second is based on not reacting to the thoughts that come into your brain. So there's breath meditation and breathing in and breathing out, similar to what we experience when we do yoga. And then the other type of meditation is pushing you to be conscious of every thought that crosses your mind and then not reacting to it, just acknowledging. I hear that thought, I see that thought, I experience that thought, and then I let the thought go. So those are two types of meditation, but hands down improves cognitive control, attention, processing speed, working memory, increases our compassion for others, boosts the electrical activity of the left side of the brain, which also then helps our immune system. And when you're first getting started with a meditation practice, and it doesn't mean your devotion practice has to be replaced by meditation, you could put them hand in hand, work toward the goal of 13 minutes of no input per day. Just sitting, working toward 13 minutes per day, but doing it more often is more important than doing it long. Like, don't sit down for your first day of meditation and say, I'm going to do this for an hour, because chances are likely you're not going to like it. You're not going to be able to sustain for an hour and you're going to get frustrated. So some other things that you can do to stay focused on the task at hand is to make a list. These slides should have been switched. Stay focused on the task at hand. Make a list. If you have zoned out, forgotten what you were doing, misplaced something you need, make a list of what you were doing at the time. Maybe journal about it. What was it that, kind of catch yourself in the moment so that you can reflect and see if there's a way that you can increase your success next time to finish the task. Chanel, I know you're on here and you've been doing a lot of practice at you've been completing practices of micro planning and setting up yourself to go through piles that you've been avoiding for years, and you're having a lot of success at that. If there's a day that you don't, take a breath, reflect on it, give yourself some grace, and then think about what you could do differently to get back into the habit the next time. Also, practice being more aware in similar situations. For example, say and describe what you're doing as you do it. That will also help you stay engaged in the moment. Oh, look at me here. I'm here at the gym to work out and I'm on my phone. Oh, note to self. I better set my timer so that I finish this in 20 minutes and I can move on to the next task. Contemplation, I think, is so key. Thomas Merton and a lot of they call them desert fathers and mothers, came up with this idea of Christian contemplation many, many years ago. Obviously, other religions have meditation and contemplation as well. But if we can make ourselves unavailable for a period of time, a lot of people choose first thing in the morning to truly sort of center in on what's most important to us in the day ahead. That can help set us up for more success later. I shared this breath prayer in an email I sent out, tried to send out Tuesday, it went yesterday. But I just took Philippians 4:7 and just made it into a breath prayer. So you take the first part of the verse, and the peace of God, breathe in, which transcends all understanding, breathe out, will guard your hearts and minds, breathe in Christ Jesus, breathe out. And some breath prayers are even shorter than that one. Just trying to see if I had this one. I keep a book on my shelf. Where is it? I have been keeping a book on my shelf. I must have put it in another bookshelf. I've been keeping a book on my shelf of breath prayers by an author and yogi named Octavia Rahim that I find really helpful. They're just 2 lines and they're just very simple. Breath in, say a line, breath out, say a line, which is not much different than what the scripture says, right? About in your comings and goings, let your breath be about your prayer. So this is just, your prayer be in with your breath. So it's a way to kind of focus in on that automatic thing, that autonomic thing that we do in breathing, but bring prayer into it. And I had a friend reach out and share. She said, that was so good. I love Philippians 4. I'd forgotten to cite it in my email. Okay, so contemplation. You can also practice Lectio Divina, which I give you the instructions in the Soul Care Kit. So if you don't have that resource, let me know and I'll make sure you get one. You can practice meditation on certain topics, on certain art images. If you are there's actually a really sweet practice the Catholics have called the Examen. The Jesuits have that called the Examen. There are resources that you can access through the Jesuits, including one that I like is a podcast called The Examen, and it's a daily 20-minute devotional. I'll put it on and listen to it while I walk, where the priest reads kind of a scripture, reflects on it, and it's the same one every day for a week, kind of based on the scripture of the time. And I love that it's not monotonous because it's not the same thing, but it's a good reminder every day and really helps me get into the word. So that's another resource that you can use to help you kind of focus if Christian practice is your jam. Okay, we're gonna change gears, and I'm not sure, there's my other slide. I'm like, I don't know what happened to my other slide. So we're gonna change gears and we're gonna end our time together tonight by listening for our inner wisdom. So hopefully you've taken something out of the last part of the presentation, that decluttering isn't the goal, Decluttering the space isn't the goal. Creating the sacred space is the goal. And out of that pours the opportunity to close out distractions and declutter the space. Does that make sense? So what we're focusing on is not so much the action of doing, but the state of being. And so aroma freedom is one of those practices that uses our essential oils in a harmonious way to help us bring together that goal of soul care at its best, at its most centered, at its as it's designed. It was created, Aroma Freedom was created by Dr. Benjamin Purkis. He's a clinical psychologist. He's actually just published a recent article about this process and about using oils for memory reconsolidation as part of a healing practice that he has been teaching and training others on since 2017. I think I was one of the first to sign up because I knew how powerful this was, and I wanted to use it for myself and also to share it with others. So think for a minute, and it may have to do with decluttering. It may have to do with grief. It may have to do with circumstances, personal circumstances in your life or relationship. But what would you say is the most challenging part of or roadblock that you're experiencing at the moment? And you can just bring it to mind of, man, if this could just shift or if this could just change, that would do so much for me. And what we're going to do is we're going to identify that situation. Again, maybe we start with overwhelm, going back to Brene Brown, right? And that idea of overwhelm being, I don't even know how I feel about the situation in the moment, right? Overwhelm meaning I'm so anxious, I can't see straight. I can't make healthy decisions about what I want to do next. I'm avoiding the inevitable. I'm avoiding what I should be doing. But identify that situation and then name the feeling that you have about it. And you can use the feeling wheel that's on the screen in front of you. Notice that the further out from the center of the wheel that you go, the more specific the feeling is. It's really good to get a really good handle on how you're feeling. So if you're stuck in the overwhelm loop, just take a minute, maybe put on an oil that helps you center, and then get clear again about the situation. And every time I start yawning, it's not about exhaustion, it's about my emotions clearing when we start talking about feelings. I love that. I love how embarrassing it is when it happens. Okay, so once you have the situation and a feeling, find that feeling in your body. Where are you holding the bewildered feeling that you're having, the critical feeling that you're having, the lonely feeling that you're having? And then identify a negative thought that goes with it. And then for the clearing, you can take 1 drop each of lavender, frankincense, and stress away. Cup your hands over your nose and mouth and breathe in, smelling the essential oils. And as you smell the oils, you're looking for something to shift, either a new insight to replace the situation or about the situation. You're looking for a feeling to change. Maybe you felt hopeless when you first started, and then you realize there was a glimmer of awareness or playfulness that came next. Or maybe you realize it's not the presenting situation at all, and it's something behind it, something deeper. Let's go ahead and repeat those steps again if you need my leadership for that. Identify that situation, either the same one or another one that kind of came to mind, like, oh, I wasn't really upset about this thing. I'm really upset about this other thing. And then name the feeling that goes with the situation. Locate the feeling in your body. Identify the negative thought. And then smell those oils again. And remember, if you don't have oils handy, it's okay. Pick a citrus. You can use citrus. I have a fresh lemon in my water. Maybe an herb. And then what do you need to do next in order to move on with your day? I do offer an aroma freedom session every month. We don't have one coming up until the 21st of, so in 2 weeks from today, we'll have an aroma freedom session. If you're in our soul care sanctuary, you can come to that at no charge. But that'll allow us to dive in more deeply into whatever you kind of stumbled upon today. I'm not going to leave you hanging though. I do want to say what comes next is some action. So again, our whole purpose tonight in talking about decluttering was to bring us back to being in a state that is even possible. And that state is one that is centered, is directed, is clear, is balanced, is harmonious. And so what action do you need to do in order to keep going in your goal of clearing out distraction or decluttering your space? Is it something that you want to write about, maybe in that soul care kit that I showed you tonight in that journaling section? Is it something that you can create as a visual representation? Can you express it in an affirmation? We're going to anchor something in right now, anchor the action in with oils and a power pose so that you get a sense for how this looks. Now, a power pose, did I put the action in here? Nope. I didn't put my wonderful graphic in. So I'm going to have to just tell it to you. Okay, so the formula for an affirmation, if you have an action associated with something that you want to do out of what we've talked about tonight, is to act as if it's already happened and create an affirmation that starts out, I feel, and then choose a positive emotion that you will feel when you have completed the task that you want to do. So if it's a small decluttering task in your home, if it's a meditation that you want to start doing, if you want to commit to doing breath prayers every day or something small, that helps you get into a rhythm of being still and doing nothing. Then you would say, I feel joy in my gut when I do my devotions each day, or when I clean up the table in my house. Or your affirmation may look something like, I can and I will. Probably not watch me, but I am abundant. I have everything I need. I create a healing space. And when you say an affirmation like that, or you speak it over yourself, you're putting it out into the world so that God can hear it too. And now what you're going to do is believe it within yourself, and you lock it in with a power pose. So you can take, I happen to have abundance here. You can take a drop of a different oil than you used, and then stand in a power pose that expresses the energy of your statement. So, for example, if yours, it may be something gentle that you need to do with yourself. So your power pose may be hands over your heart, or prayer pose like we do in yoga. It may be arms up above your head, hands on your hips, or even this strong pose, or hands behind your head. Whatever expresses the energy of the affirmation that you're giving, that's what you want to choose for your power pose. And then commit to taking an action even before bed tonight that will help you be accountable. Maybe it's telling someone about what you learned tonight. Maybe there's some way for you to chart your progress. If you found value in the decluttering checklist, maybe you print it out and you put it on your fridge and you reward yourself every time you cross one thing off your list. Maybe segmenting your day, time blocking your day would help you be more consistent with the actions that you want to take. So you start doing that and you see the progress, you put it on your calendar as an action to be done every day. And then, of course, allow for grace. And I remind you of this every month when we do this presentation, because truly, that's why I'm here. Because I am forgiven and I am made new each and every day, with every setback, with every breakthrough, with every opportunity to try again tomorrow. And so are you. If you want to join the Soul Care Sanctuary, because you are not in it yet and you want that information, I can send that to you. I'll put it in the comments of the YouTube link when I get that up. For those of you who are coming on a retreat, I'm looking forward to seeing you all soon. I sent out my first email yesterday with the link to sign up for, kind of give me your preferences so I know what we're doing together in terms of food and recreation. That just gives me kind of a guideline for that. I still have a couple of spaces open. I've been having some conversations with some women this week already about coming along. I'm really excited about what that can mean as the group grows in size. We're about a month out, but it's not too late. We'll make room for extra guests, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm super glad that we had this time together tonight. I hope it was nourishing to your body, your mind, and your spirit, and that it blesses you in ways that maybe you hadn't counted on, but give you food for thought. When we meet on Monday during our Soul Care Sanctuary Care Circle, that will be our time to sort of chit chat about what we took away, what we learned, what we appreciated about it, what we can implement right away, and what might take us a little while when it comes down to our